47G, the 22nd day of September 2022. You're very welcome back to the channel. I have 811 subscribers. I lost one or two, but I wouldn't mind that. We're still gaining ground, and I hope that continues. I do get some complimentary comments to say that I am talking common sense, and I'm very careful to do what I say and to try and have common sense a part of it, because it's just like you chat to people. I in the modern day and age, you do talk to people, you meet on the street and all that, but it's important to also to communicate using this medium. I mean, when people are buying things and buying cattle and houses and all on the internet, we can have communication. But it's gone very bad, and the advertising or advertising, whichever you call it, has gone very bad. Someone said here that you can get rid of those. I don't find any way getting rid of them without paying a fee to a company to cut out the advertisements, and that's the cure being worse than the disease. If there is, please comment again. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube, but it is terrible, the amount of advertising, some of it compulsory, things that are totally and utterly irrelevant to me. And I think it's nearly gone to the stage now that if you check for something, maybe like I want to see where a hardware shop is, I want to buy maybe a drill or something like that, and I Google it, the next thing is in the middle of a YouTube video you get about maybe the astronomy or something, you get all this advertising about some new wonder drill made by McKeith or some other crowd or some other way of drilling a hole, all a load of nonsense, all that sort of stuff, and ways to heat your room for only a penny a day with some kind of a special gadget. I mean, this kind of nonsense is just all over the place. Anyway, it's 47G world order. Now, there are a lot of people have theories about New World Order and conspiracy theories, and theories that the Jewish people have a conspiracy to imprison us all, and all of this sort of stuff. And having said that, I'm not a disciple, but I do know that people will, left to their own devices, try and run the lives of others and rule the lives of others if they can. I mean, the invasion is one way of doing it. You invade a country and then you throw your weight about and you tell the people there what to do. That's the most direct way. But there are other ways, and of course the media is such a powerful tool among silly people, and most of our people are silly, that it's very hard to counter it. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. Now, I believe the New World Order, for what it is that it's rich people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and all these people who hit it very lucky in the freedom of the world we have with free economics and no communism, that do well, and then they fear that they can't pass on their wealth. They know they can pass on their wealth. They can store it in ways that they probably can. And there are probably people today who are wealthy because they had some relation who lived maybe 100 years ago. I know one or two who are wealthy, inherited up to 300 million euros because there was a great grandfather invented some kind of a radio or something a way back, or had a chip shop or something like that. So you can pass on wealth in certain circumstances. So they're not worried about that. But what they are worried about is that when they pass on the wealth to their kids, the world will be gone due to this climate change, and that's the big panic that's on them. So you get these rich people flying around in just getting out of the light here, flying around in big jets, burning up fuel, telling the likes of me and you not to use any fuel. So you have this hypocrisy as part of it. But I think that is their way of thinking. I think that's the way they go. So that's what the New World Order was in the world. And I'm going to take a wee look at how profound it is, what has happened, how it's getting on. Now, the climate is their big worry. Oh, what will we do? We'll be gone, but our grandchildren will be roasted. Oh, we'll be roasted. Oh, we better make the plebs, the ordinary jackasses, do something, and we can manage to control government, and they can manage to control government. And the classic example of that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump was not one of them. And he told the Germans that they were stupid to be relying on the Russians for their fuel, and they laughed at him. And they invented a complete false Russian hoax, which quite a few people in Ireland believe was true. And quite a few people in Ireland believe Trump rigged the election, but he didn't. It was this world order made such a big deal out of COVID that they managed to get the electoral system in America done by postal vote. They got it done by postal vote. And when all these people living in the suburbs and poor people got their vote, that some, not all, some of the Democratic supporters, no Republicans did it, went round and collected the vote from them and asked them how they were doing and said, sure, we'll post it for you, and marked it. And so there was thousands of these votes done. There was also issues over electric voting machines. Imagine that some of the votes for the presidential election 2020 were counted in Germany, and some are supposed to be counted in South America. So there was all this racket going on, and that wouldn't work. We would, in fairness, here in Ireland, you wouldn't get away with that in Ireland. So I don't believe Trump was properly beaten. I think it was a hatchet job. But the fact that they went against him so much, even if I can't prove the election was rigged, I can prove that they invented the Russian hoax and they never accepted him. Nancy Pelosi tore up his State of the Union address. That will tell you how bitter and how these people are so ingrained. Now, they seem to like China, and I think the reason they liked China was that they liked the idea of China being communist and controlling its people, because their objective is also to control their people. And I have made the point that the political spectrum is round like the face of a clock. It is not a bar. Nobody agrees with me on that. That's their business, but I believe I'm right in that. Now, anyway, the other thing too, they tolerated Russia because they were getting cheap Russian gas and oil and coal and raw materials. And as long as that was going on, they tolerated Russia. And they were able to lie about renewable energy and maintain that wind and solar energy actually worked because they were getting this cheap gas. But now that they don't have it and it's threatened for the winter, there's panic stations. And you can see that it's such hypocrisy that the very crowd that were preaching not to burn fuel are now screeching, looking for it. But there's still people in Ireland, Britain, America and Canada and other places who still see nothing wrong with this. They cannot see that hypocrisy. Can't see the conflict there. So the next thing was they thought when Putin went in that they'd get the sanctions, they'd deal with him by sanctions. It's better than going to war, I suppose. And they thought that they'd control sanctions and secondary sanctions. And don't forget, please remember back how they talked about sanctions by the EU and by North America, the United States and Canada. And then they talked about secondary sanctions, that any other country which did deal with Russia was going to be sanctioned as well. Where did that all go to? That dissipated. See? So they weaponized the dollar, and there's a price to be paid for that. And I mentioned in a previous video, there's movements now to get the dollar out of the way and trade with other currencies. And I think that will be slow. It doesn't have to happen. As one commentator on one of my videos said, he made the point that's not that easy done. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that over a period of 2 or 3 years, they'll etch into it. And if the dollar's dominance is rivaled by another currency or a number of currencies, that weakens the whole Western situation, and it leaves it that if they go to threaten sanctions again, and don't forget the Western world, the New World Order will use sanctions again, they'll try to control world policy. They will not be in a position to do it because these countries like India, China and all these countries, they know well they are going to be next in this. They know well. It doesn't mean that they're right in invading neighbours or Taiwan or anything like that, but that's what they're thinking, and this is the reality of what they're thinking. So China now pulled out of the Paris Accord. I have claimed the whole climate thing was a hoax. It's more or less a hoax, all totally exaggerated by the media, and it has a motive, and I made that clear several times. And I believe the COVID reaction was way over the top, and they got rid of Trump using it, and now we have this war. So that type of interference, that type of messing about has consequences, and the people of the Ukraine are now suffering it. They didn't have any inquiry into Hunter Biden's racketeering in the Ukraine. Nothing at all. So it's all one-sided investigating. No matter who it is, the right-wing people will get hammered, and the left-wing people will get away with blue murder. So we see that. But anyway, the way it is with India, they're just not interested. We don't give two hoots. They're just not interested. They're ambitious for their people. I remember when we looked upon India and we'd hear about New Delhi and all this, and Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and all this terrible, terrible, terrible poverty. And I think that's well beaten. Now, I haven't been to India. I think they have that kind of under control. Fair play to them. But that was a time when India was looked upon as an orphan, urchin, hungry, starvation, unhygienic place. And tend to believe, I was in a warehouse a year ago, and all the parts for tractors were all made in India. I tend to believe India's pulling itself up, and that image of Mother Teresa she'd have nothing to do nowadays. I think that's the case. Now you can comment underneath. I'm not just 100% sure, but we don't hear these stories out of India, and that's what a good government should do. India is a democracy. It should pull its poor people up and give everyone a fair chance. But as it does that, it runs into the West. Oh, you can't do that. Climate change? No, you can't do that. No. You can't do that. Oh, COVID. No. Oh, you can't do that. You can't trade with Russia. Oh, no. Secondary sanctions. No. And the people who are doing this new world order, and these elites, they have no power because these countries like India are not interested. We're not interested in your rackety-tackety. We're not interested. And they're not interested. And these BRICS countries, including Brazil and all these, they're not interested. And they're not interested in their climate baloney. Right, wrong, or good or bad, they're not interested. And they're not interested in their cultural Marxism and their green codology and their green Ponzi schemes. They're not interested in it. And Saudi Arabia, not a democratic country like India. I admire India, really. And I understand that they got rid of the Queen and all. It's a total democracy over there. I don't think there's any royalty involved in it. It's just a Commonwealth country or something, that's it. But that's up to them. But the thing about it is that Saudi is not interested either. Saudi Arabia told Joe Biden, no, we're not giving you any oil, any gas. We're not popping up. They're going to increase oil a bit now, a wee bit, but they're only going to move very carefully. And the German Herr Schulz was over begging them for fuel and gas and all the rest. This is the fellow that says he can do without it. And we'll see how he gets on. And he wants to use the desert in Saudi Arabia for green hydrogen. Another fakery, because the NASA cannot get the hydrogen to stay inside in the rocket that they want to launch to the moon. They've had to cancel it twice because the hydrogen is so small in its atoms that it's leaking out, and they're not able to control it. And they have billions of a budget, and the Germans are going to control it over in Saudi Arabia. This is their baloney to have Saudi. If they're going to make any kind of hydrogen, they'll make it themselves. But this is what they're trying to do. But the point is, Schulz was over there, but all he's going to get is the same as everybody else. He'll just get the same. The day of the European Union, the Germans, the Yanks, the Canadians with their cultural Marxist Trudeau, and all, the day of them calling the shots is slowly going to an end. And this is the thing. Just as the New World Order was determined to push in their New World Order, so these countries are determined not to go along with it and to keep out of it. Okay? Now, Sweden recently voted in a right-wing party which was once connected to the Nazis. Now, they say that they have disconnected from it, but they have recently elected this party. This party got, I think it came second in Sweden. That's what is happening. In Italy, there's a woman there, party, and she's a great-granddaughter of Mussolini, the fascist fella. And Italy may well go to the right this autumn. There's elections soon. We have Viktor Orban in Hungary. The EU are trying to push him out. He's not taking any of the nonsense. They won't give him his COVID money because they don't like the way he's appointing judges. I don't like the way we appoint Irish judges either, but that's another day's work. And here in Ireland, Enoch Burke is still in prison for this thing over, as I understand it, an unfortunate, maybe perhaps mentally ill or retarded or something boy had some issue. Was he a woman or a man? He didn't know what he was. And the school insisted that all the masters refer to him as they, and Enoch Burke didn't he refer to him as him. Now, whatever the rights or wrongs, and I did a video on it, he is in prison tonight. He must be 2 weeks in Mountjoy prison in Dublin, in Ireland. This is Ireland. This is the place that looks up to St. Patrick and marches to St. Patrick on St. Patrick's Day. This is the place where the Pope came to in 1929. And it has a man in jail, under civil law granted, but for refusing to call an ill young boy, they. That's the reality of this. Now, in a poll of farmers, it's the National Ploughing Week, the National Ploughing Championship was on down in that place with that beautiful name, Ratheniska. Ratheniska, it's the fourth of water, Ratheniska, in County Laois, and they had 2 good days, I think, and then it rained last night, but it was sunny today, so I think it was a success. Fair play. I didn't go, but I will again. It's a good place to go. Anyway, a poll taken somewhere, I don't know, it wasn't at the ploughing, showed that still 37% of farmers will vote Fine Gael first preference. Fine Gael, 37. That means that if you take 100 farmers, 37 of those 100 will vote for Fine Gael. That is unbelievable, and all they've done to drive them off the land, and all they've done with their energy and everything, they're still 37%. 3.7 out of every 10 that will vote Fine Gael. I know that's the case. That is true. I know them and all the rest. What we could do about them, I don't know. I believe that sometime would be great fun to itemise them and name them publicly, put their names up on crossroads. This is the people who voted Fine Gael. I think that would be a great idea. I'd love to do it myself. But that is the amount, 37. Now, it's not that many, but it's a lot. The next thing is Fianna Fáil, 23%. Now, they're well down. Now, what's happening all over Ireland now as we head into the winter, they have a bit of spare money with all this printing, and they're doing up lanes and potholes and corners and bridges and spending money all over the place. Every council is told to dish out this printed money because they'll just get printed out like there's no tomorrow. And that will buy a bit of votes if the election is held before next year, or maybe before next June. But if it goes by next June, and it could, I mean, the probability is that the economy will collapse. But you're still going to get 35% of farming folk voting Fine Gael. I know a lot of them. They're just welded to that party, and that's it. And Fine Gael, 23%. Now, Sinn Féin is on 13. I would have thought they might be on 14%. They tend to be seen as a working man's party. Bit of the lower classes, if you want to. But no, they're only on 13. I think that could be right. Funny enough, I think this poll is fairly accurate. So if you add the three main parties up in the rural areas, because there is a bit of green, there is a bit of left wing and that, but if you add them all up, it comes to 73%. And then there'd be a wee bit of extreme lefties, greens and all that. But so there's still, if you see it here in red, there's still 27% not of the main parties. So I'd say of that, there could be 24% who would vote for right-wing parties, for people who are against this cultural Marxism, the green agenda and all that. There could be 24%. I'm not sure. But if there is 24% in a constituency with 5 seats, that would mean you could return one candidate. And there are a few of those candidates around, like Matty McGrath, Richard Collins and them. So it could be possible, not in a 3-seater. A 3-seater would not return a popular candidate, popular right-wing candidate. But a 4-seater and a 5-seater could, if the circumstances is right. And unfortunately, we have the National Party and we have the the Freedom Party. I don't think they're going to succeed because they're not just tuned in. I would like to see a party that would just have the right wing agenda, anti all this stuff that I'm telling you about. But still, it shows you that there are people there. There are enough. There is hope there in a multi-seat constituency PR system like Ireland, to get them in. And don't forget, here in Cavan we have, I think, oh, I can't think of the population, but I can tell you this: we used to have two Fine Gael seats. They'll never get another seat. There used to be two Fianna Fáil, two Fine Gael, and one Sinn Féin, and now that that Fine Gael seat is gone. Heather Humphreys will hold that seat, but that's it. They'll not get anybody else in. Fianna Fáil has two. They might not hold them seats, and Fine Gael is probably, oh, sorry. Sinn Féin will hold two. I'd say they'll probably hold two, Matt Carthy and Pauline Tully. So Pauline Tully and Matt Carthy up here, well, we're near the border. You have one Fine Gael, and you could have one or two Fianna Fáil. There would be a possibility of getting one right-wing candidate in Cavan. I think it's a long shot. I'm not too sure if it would work, but still there is a wee bit of hope, folks. I'm just giving you this old chat here on this Thursday night, as we move into the winter and all these interesting things taking place. But what we're seeing is we're seeing all this old hopes and dreams and daydreams and green baloney and all this old codology and LBGB nonsense and all this. We're seeing it played out on the world stage. And from this we talk to you folks, what I believe, and I can only give my opinion, and people say I have common sense, I believe it proves there is not a new world order between the West, Canada, the United States, Britain and the EU. There is not a new world order that extends beyond those boundaries, and even within those boundaries it's not too solid. It's getting shaky. The new world order does not extend any further than the European-Ukrainian western border, the border between the two. And Russia is not in on the act, definitely. He's Mr. Bad Boy. Saudi Arabia is now being courted, but they were the bad boy up to recently, and they're not in on the act. And China's not in on the act. Anything can happen there. And India, most important, a democratic country, is not in on the act. And those are highly populated regions. So that's what I make it. So what is attempted to be done is to build another new world order in those countries, leaving the EU and Europe and America more or less as one block of new world order, one like Bill Gates and all these people, and Soros and all these, and Bilderberg and World Economic Forum and the East. And China is already investing in Africa and places like that. And there was always a situation where the West New World Order tried to only make out that they were helping Africa. They weren't helping Africa. They would never have straightened it out. But we see now that countries in Africa, we see that in India, they are beginning to pull their people out of poverty. But when they pull them out of poverty, they'll have electricity, cars and all the rest of it. When they pull them out of poverty, they'll do so by ignoring all the carbon taxes, all the green agenda and all the other stuff. They'll do it in that way. And so how long the West, with its woke cultural Marxism and all that crack, can last, then they're not doing well, their economies are not doing well, and it just looks like this is what is happening. In other words, the poor people of the world, of Calcutta and Africa and everywhere else, were looking to Christian missionaries, looking through America and Europe and getting the crumbs. What they seem to be doing now is claiming their right to come out of poverty. And as that happens, they have to make decisions. Do they buy Russian oil or not? And they're being pressed by the Europe and America not to. but they know that what they got from Europe and America was poverty, and now they see that they can actually get a bit of the actual meal rather than just the crumbs. And it seems that that's the way the thinking is in these non-European American countries. To get me point, sorry if I procrastinate a wee bit there, but that's my thinking of what's happening, and I'm not a bit sorry. I'm not a bit sorry. Uh, be worth to hear if anyone knows what's happening in Calcutta. Folks, that's one of the longest videos I ever made. I'll leave it at that. Give me a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And it's not good making long videos because it does turn people off. But anyway, it's just a bit of a chat, and we'll see you back for something else soon. Thank you.